Hello, my name is Steve Walls, and I'm here to talk about democratic socialism in a capitalist society. Could we somehow implement democratic socialism into a capitalist society? Could it be done? How could it be done? Now, socialism, for many people, means communism. What I mean is the association of socialism with the Soviet Union and communism has influenced some people's perceptions and opinions of socialism. They may not even fully understand what it is or how it could benefit society. If you grew up during the Cold War era, and you saw all the conflicts between the United States and the Soviet Union, well, this contributed to the demonization of socialism, the fear of authoritarianism, government control, and the suppression of individual freedoms created skepticism and apprehension about socialism in some parts of the world. How do democratic socialism and capitalism differ from each other? They have differing ideologies. Democratic socialism advocates for more extensive government intervention in the economy and income redistribution, while capitalism is rooted in free market principles, emphasizing individual private ownership and competition. Progressive taxation, where the wealthier individuals and corporations pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes, whereas in capitalism, taxation tends to be more focused on generating government revenue rather than wealth redistribution. Now, what are the challenges of implementing democratic socialism into a capitalist society? Well, wealthy elites may exert their influence over the political process, and this is the way that it's been for many, many years. After generations and generations, wealthy elites have always had control, and those who benefit from capitalism may oppose a more equal distribution of wealth, fearing that it could reduce their own wealth and opportunities. In a hierarchy, power and authority reside in a pyramidal structure or chain of command, unaccountable to those below. Distinct ranks of people acquire different material, moral, and or cultural privileges. That's Tom Mallison from his book Fired Up About Capitalism. And it's true, a hierarchy at its worst shows people of authority abusing their power. They don't have to follow the rules, like we've discussed in our chapter on capitalism. I mean, that's part of the challenge of making change. If I was rich and used to cutting corners and used to being pampered, not having to be accountable to those below, I would not just let all of these new changes be implemented into a structure that has existed for generations upon generations. I mean, that's the big problem right there. How would we go about implementing such big changes into a capitalist society? Well, I mean, many of us grew up with parents from the 60s and 70s, and that old hippie generation method of social protest and John and Yoko staying in bed for a week. The hell no, we won't go method of making change doesn't necessarily work the way they originally thought it would in the 60s, because really that just gives powerful politicians and policymakers an excuse to slap back the young rebellious protesters and take away more basic freedoms.
The political class consistently breaks the law for reasons of financial gain or to maintain and protect its own power. Howard Zinn.
Politicians are not perfect people. They have flaws like anyone else. And as we know, they sometimes are quite wealthy. They can use their status as a politician to their advantage. They quite often rub shoulders with corporations and banks. If I'm a wealthy politician, I'm going to want to stick to my own agenda. I'm not going to just suddenly let the lower class dictate how much tax I contribute, or that's a very complex whole other topic. Then there's the more of us than them way of thinking. That almost influences anarchy, which we know why anarchy doesn't work. Anarchy as a form of protest is not a good idea. There's negative public perception of that word, anarchy. That sounds like a very negative, somewhat scary word. I mean, when people think of anarchy, they think of overthrowing the government, storming the Capitol buildings, that type of behavior, violent behavior. So then there's legal consequences. You can get into a lot of trouble. It's very difficult to keep order. Lack of control. There's no boundaries. Things can take a turn for the worse at any second. One person might be shouting through a megaphone. Another person might be lighting a car on fire. Like these types of things happen. We've seen this. We've seen this happen. So, I mean, if we can't overthrow the government, how do we do it? And I'm glad you asked us that, Charles Bronson, because the answer is gradually. It must be done gradually. The best way to implement that kind of a change, it cannot be done all at one time, because it creates chaos. It disrupts the current system. We won't see it in my lifetime, because it's a very slow process to make that kind of change. Capitalism has been ingrained into us in our way of life for generations upon generations, and in order to successfully implement democratic socialism, we have to get over the hurdles of first, making people aware of the benefits of socialism, and not to be afraid of socialism, and don't confuse it with the ruthless dictatorship. We have to wait until, people like Donald Trump are in the grave. So gradually, bit by bit, is how we implement those changes. Democratic socialism cannot just be dropped all at once on a society. So thank you for watching my presentation, and you're welcome, Charles Bronson. Thank you for tuning in and watching my video presentation. We'll see you next time.